Good morning, good afternoon, I guess it is. Here we are. Here we are. Here we are. Here we are. So, good morning. Here's the deal. My question this morning I woke up with is, you know, why? And you would think that I would know why. And sometimes I feel that I do know why. But I realized that I get a little caught. And so I'm doing this every day. Every day I've been, doing this, and I'm reading from our little book here, the 24-hour day book, and I some often something comes to share, an experience, um, something that's current in my life and that kind of thing. And but this morning it was like, what for? Why the heck am I doing this? Why am I doing this? And I really had to drop deep into that. I mean, in probably the last 2 or 3 hours, I just dropped into it, and there is no, I can't find a meaning. When I search around and I literally in the mind of myself looking for a cause or reason for sharing, and there isn't any. You see, if I'm doing this in hopes that somebody will awaken, that's not my business. If you awaken or don't awaken, or if you want to awaken or don't want to awaken, it's not my business. Who gives a shit, right? Doesn't really matter if you do or you don't. Doesn't really matter if I do or I don't. So, yeah, it was a bit of an awakening for me today, to that it doesn't matter. I'm I'm not your teacher. I'm just showing up every day with something, and so I guess it doesn't really matter. A bit of, I guess, if some if people come and and listen, and because they want to, or they have an innate desire. There's something in them that says, okay, I don't know what this guy's saying, but maybe it might help in some way. Then okay, but anyway, it doesn't really matter. What does waking up mean? What does waking up mean to you? What doesn't really matter? So I don't really have a message this morning other than it doesn't really matter. Get it, don't get it, you know. To me, the bliss is beyond the mind. And the mind is so intricate. Talk about a maze. I think this thing up here behind me, you know, that's the Kali Chakra. Um, um, that's a maze. That's a beautifully done maze of the mind. It's like, the Tibetan Buddhists, they really had it. And so when we venture in a way, we can get lost in there, and most everybody, if not everybody, is lost in there, to one degree or another, me included. I know that seems a little abstract, but you know, in the mind, baby, crazy, and so anyway, doesn't really matter. In my search this morning for something that might matter, I picked up the ABCs of Enlightenment from Osho, a spiritual dictionary for the here and now. You see, nobody can describe it. Nobody can describe it. Eckhart Tolle said it's now. So what's beyond the mind cannot be described, because the mind can't go beyond the mind. But what's beyond the mind is peace, even though it can't be described. So, and yeah, Osho wrote, I think Osho wrote this, but it's in his little book anyway. No mind He did actually. Everything's, from A, right, he picked words all the way to through every letter of the alphabet. No mind, he says. If the mind wants to comprehend reality, will have to go beyond the past and the future. So if the mind wants to comprehend reality, it will have to go beyond the past and the future. But if it goes beyond the past and the future, it is no longer the mind at all. Hence, the influence of all the great masters of the world the insistence, it says, hence the insistence of all the great masters of the world that the door to reality is no mind. Who really wants to go to no mind? Not many. Slip out of the mind and you will know what it is. I'm going to read another one. Freedom. I haven't read this yet, so I just went to this page just now. I haven't read it, so we'll see what he says about freedom. Is anybody interested in freedom? So it's interesting. No, hardly anybody's interested in the idea of no mind. But if I say, "Are you interested in freedom?" You're like, "Yes, yes, I want to be free." And then it's like, but I don't want to let go of my beliefs. I don't want to let go of my judgments. I don't want to let go of my complaint or my conditioning or my fear or my anger. But I do want freedom. Fuck. Anyway, I'm a little cynical this morning. Hope you don't mind. Freedom, it says, is maturity. License is very childish. Freedom is possible only when you are so integrated that you can take the responsibility for being free. The world is not free because people are not mature. Revolutionaries have been doing many things down the centuries, but everything fails. Utopians have been continuously thinking of how to free mankind, but nobody bothers, because man cannot be free unless he is integrated. Only a Buddha can be free. A Mahavira can be free. A Christ, a Muhammad can be free. A Zarathustra can be free, because freedom means being aware. If you're not aware, then the state is needed. If you are not aware, then the state is needed. The government is needed. The police is needed. The court is needed. Then freedom has to be cut from everywhere. Then freedom has to be cut from everywhere. When freedom exists only in name, in fact, it doesn't exist. How can freedom exist when governments exist? It is impossible. But what to do? It's interesting. So freedom, he says, is when we're fully integrated. Interesting. Okay, I don't have much for you today. Because it doesn't really matter, and I don't think in my heart of hearts that many of us are willing to surrender to the depths that we need to surrender to have peace, to be free. So yeah, what does freedom mean to you? What does awakening mean to you? Say something. I think it would be nice to hear from you guys. If you watch this over the next little while, if anybody actually watches this to this point, say something. What does freedom mean to you? Are you really interested? Do you give a shit? Or are you just living in the illusion that someday, somehow, something will change. Are we? Are we the 13th of January? What day are we? We are. I read from this little book because, often when we're dealing with the addict or the alcoholic, we are at the bottom, if you don't mind me saying, of the emotional scale. You know, I've worked with tons and tons of addicts and alcoholics over the years, and most of us stop maturing at about 13. And we're running around stamping our feet, trying to get our way, pushing and pulling, and so a lot of what is written here is really for the 13-year-old who's still trying to manipulate life with the mind. And so this book talks a bit about that. And so this is for that. If you relate, it talks about the gift of freedom as well, because the beautiful thing about the 12 steps is it has it has a process that can take us from 13 to full maturity. We can become mature men and women, and being responsible, being fully integrated in the 12 steps. Not many do, but it's possible. It's there. That's the depth and the breadth of that program that it talks about. And so I'd like to hear if any of you are interested in awakening, not just little hand claps and prayer hands. Ganesh, come on, buddy. What does awakening mean to you? What does awakening mean to you? When we were drinking, it says, this is in the 24-hour day book, we were living an unnatural life physically and mentally. We were punishing our bodies by loading them with alcohol. We didn't eat enough, and we ate the wrong things. We didn't get enough sleep or the right kind of rest. We were ruining ourselves physically. We had an alcoholic obsession, and we couldn't imagine life without alcohol. We kept imagining all kinds of crazy things about ourselves and about other people. We were ruining ourselves mentally. Since I came into AA, am I getting better physically and mentally? Yeah, all right. Freedom from self, yes, yes. So what does that look like, Ganesh? What does that look like? We become aware that the mind has a story. The mind has a story about us. And we're living in that mind story and operating from that mind story, which, is not freedom. And we've been taught in our 12-step world that freedom comes through having a relationship with the moment, God consciousness, and that integrating that surrender. Yes, yeah, surrender to this moment, to this God consciousness, to this, infinite intelligence, recognizing that we really cannot run the show from our selfish, self-centered minds. I mean, they laid out so beautifully, Meditation for today. I believe that my life is being refined like gold in a crucible. Gold does not stay in the crucible only until it is refined. I'll never despair or be despondent. I will never despair or be despondent. I know I now have friends who long for me to conquer. So what are we conquering? We're conquering the mind, but we cannot do it. We have to surrender it. So it isn't really conquer, it's a surrender. And we recognize, and that has to be, that's step one. That is step one. Right, Ganesh? That is step one. Yes. So the trouble is with when we use the word God, Ganesh said, to my God, when we use the word God, a mind conjures up all kinds of images. And nobody can describe this thing we call God. But we're caught in a lot of images from religion that limit us, that we're back actually, we're back looking at life through a lens of the stories we were told in our religious upbringing. That was limited, very limited. It was because it was Sunday school. It was to manipulate and manage the masses. And this idea of surrender of the mind, so that we actually have, you know, we the power, that power greater than ourselves, operating in our lives, and then we're free, and then we're free. But hardly anybody wants that freedom, you know. We if you got a taste of it, um, if you really get a taste of it, it's like, oh my gosh, this is so amazing. This is so, um, you know, real. But hardly anybody wants it. We like to live in the familiar, which is our fearful, judgmental, angry, who the hell does he think he is kind of a place. I'm telling you that, it doesn't really matter. You can stay there. It doesn't really matter. In the big picture, it doesn't matter. Uh, because that's just the persona. That's just the persona. It dies. But the essence, the God essence, never dies. And so, we're here, if you will, in an experiment on the planet, to realize that we are not that we are one with the oneness. So we wake up, and the freedom that comes from that is amazing. The freedom is like, okay. And I mean, I'm not always there myself. I get, this morning truly got caught up in, what's the use? And because I, what is the use? All right, prayer for the day. There is no, I guess the bottom line is, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Prayer for the day. I pray that I may always call on God's strength, that the gold of my life is being refined. I pray that I may see it through with God's help. So, you know, that's the intricate parts of step one and step two that we're talking about this morning. Step one is we cannot manage our own lives, period, full stop. Good luck. You know, we search around, casting around, trying to figure, well, if I get in better shape, or if I have a better job, or if I learn some better, better habits, right? That things will work out. But, um, yeah. Step two, though, is coming to recognize that there is a power greater than ourselves that can restore us to sanity. And what are we talking about? You know, what are we talking about? The sanity that we're talking about is realizing that we cannot run the show, and so the 12-step program is just one way, but it is a great way because it's so delicately laid out. 12-step program allows us to build a relationship moment to moment with this. We pause, it says, we be here now. We pray and we meditate and we make this connection, and it grows. And through this connection, we find peace. The promises are amazing. Like, they're so amazing. Yeah. So that's it. Let's have a quick meditation, you guys. What do you think? Just if you're into having a little meditation, let's do it. We're gonna sit. you know, um, Everybody is where they're at, and where you're at is perfect. Wherever you're in the evolution of your soul, is in this moment is perfect. Nothing is wrong with where you're at. And if you feel drawn to this idea of awakening, if you feel drawn to it, then go with it. Have Pray for courage. Pray for courage if you feel drawn to it. Become obsessed with awakening if you're drawn to it. And through understanding, in a way, we're able to surrender. Through understanding that we cannot manage the show, through experience that we cannot manage the show, through we begin to surrender, and as we surrender, we awaken. It's like, oh, to our natural state, because what I'm talking about, this relationship with a higher power, is our natural state. It isn't something we have to attain. We realize, we become self-realized, right? Okay. Love you guys. Let's meditate for a few minutes. And what happens, the reason that I do this with the meditation, okay, the reason we're meditating together is so that we can drop into that quiet space. Let's just drop into that quiet space just for a minute. And and in that space, we can see that we are not our thoughts. We can see that we're not our mind. If that's possible to see that. And when you see that, it's like, oh, if I'm not my mind, if I'm not my thoughts, if I'm not my conditioned beliefs, who am I? Big question. Who am I? Okay, you guys. Love you. We're going to just sit for a couple of minutes. I just pray that it seems to be out of my control, whether I even keep doing this or not. It's like I watch because ego comes up and says, stop it, but we're just one day at a time. We'll keep doing this, I guess. I don't know, because it doesn't really matter. You have to let go of this idea that it makes a difference or that it matters or that it's for something. And yet still be able to do it. Maybe just from love. Maybe just from love. I pray, that love becomes my guide. Love needs to be the guide. So as you close your eyes and drop into this space, this oneness, this who we really are, beyond thought, beyond the past, beyond the future. There is no future, there is no past, there is no next. There is no story, there is no identity. You are not who you think you are. You're not what you do for a living. Because you have children and maybe a mother or a father, that's not who you are. That's the role, that's what we do here. We drop past that just for a minute. We can pick it up in a minute. We can pick it up when we come back. All of that stuff will be waiting for us. All of our identity, all of our fears can be waiting for us. Just let them go. All our fears around being liked or finances or our health, just let it go for a minute. Just drop it. Right there. There it is. Come inside. Feel the expansion of the moment. In the moment is everything. An expanded state. Just feel as the tightness just slips out of us. As we start to melt. In that expanded state is love. Complete release into love. Into now. Into no thing. No identity. Just be